This is the very first time we produced an album outside of Germany. So we went out of our comfort zone and decided to work with Studio Fredman. Fredrik Nordström is an award-winning producer who shaped and developed the Gothenburg sound, and I'm very sure everybody of you has at least 2 records he produced at home. He produced In Flames, Dimmu Borgir, At the Gates, just to name a few. All those bands released their albums in the early 90s, but the game changer for me to finally decide flying over to Sweden and record an album was a production he made for Architects from the UK. The album sounds three-dimensional. We are not looking backwards to all the productions he did in the early 90s. No, it's the current productions he did for bands that are actually from a completely different genre. His ability to underline the character of each band, this made me decide flying over to Sweden and record an album over here.
Of course, we have a very clear idea what we want to sound like as a band, where we come from, where we want to go, but I think in order to improve and to grow as a band and as musicians, it's also very important to get an outside perspective on your music. It's very necessary in order not to stagnate as a band.
When I grew up, I listened to all of the albums that have been released around mid-90s, early 90s, late 90s, and those albums are still a big influence on my, career as a musician. Talking about At the Gates, In Flames, Dissection.
Definitely, we both grew up with a lot of albums that produced by Fredrik Nordström, so we always loved this kind of sound. I always think he's been a very important figure in the European metal scene, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's not that we really try to sound exactly like those bands, of course, but I mean, we all grew up with albums like Slaughter of the Soul or Horacle or Clayman by In Flames, and all of those albums, what they have is a kind of timeless sound. So they don't really sound dated even nowadays. You can still listen to them and they still sound like they could have come out nowadays.
It doesn't matter if I listen to an album from the mid-90s or if I listen to an award-winning record from Architects. All those albums are fucking timeless.
Fredrik has like a very spontaneous and not overly analytical approach to a production, which I think is quite refreshing, especially since with this album we did not really want to recreate the exact sound that we had on older albums. On the other hand, we also don't just want to copy any of the other Fredman studio albums.
Especially Fredrik Nordström as a character and as a producer is simply one of its own.
Fredrik sort of has that personality of just being chaotic and, you know, he has this like laid back approach, but also very professional. It's a balance that I don't think a lot of producers have. Other producers that I work with can be very strict, focus on the details almost to a fault. And it seems like he brings together productions in a chaotic sort of way, but it's very musical.
So we didn't really know what to expect in the beginning because this is the first time for the band that we work with a different producer. What we did was basically we took the classic signature Obscura sound and combined it with the more spontaneous and not overly analytical attitude that Fredrik uses in his productions.
Don't fuck around on the small details that no one's going to hear at the end. What's the big picture? And step back and let's focus on the big picture and what's actually going to make a difference to the sound. You can get so far deep into it that, you know, some decisions don't even make a difference. He has enough experience and he's made so many records that he knows already, like from the start, from when he hits record, what he should be listening for and what he should be focusing on, because he just knows the whole process. That's the biggest thing, is managing the time and focusing on what really matters for each band.
I don't know, but I have been working with so many different kind of music, and my idea is always to bring the band sounds forward. And their idea also is like they want to develop Obscura sound, and they think maybe I'm the right guy to do it. So I take my knowledge and bring it to them, and also it's like, of course, we have a discussion and try to do something together.
Recording an album somewhere in a new environment always requires a certain comfort. Over here, you have the best equipment possible, you have a fantastic sounding room. I feel very comfortable over here, and I think we never had a more relaxed atmosphere to record or overall produce music. This is really relaxed, everybody is experienced. I mean, Fredrik Nordström recorded his first albums somewhere in the 80s, I guess.
You should leave the studio with a smile, and you should be happy with what's happened. And I noticed during my year, the album that we have had a good time while recording and a good time side of the recording, that those albums always turn out best. Yeah, you bring a feeling into the working session.
In every second working with Fredrik Nordström, his experience shines through. It doesn't matter if we're recording vocals, if we set up some guitar tones. He simply understands each and every band immediately. That's amazing. That's really a new experience because we worked with the same studio for about 18 years. And now in this new environment, it's something refreshing. It's simply different. And I'm very sure you hear this positive atmosphere and vibe on the new album.
I think like in 2005 when people start recording at home, there was terrible sound out. But if you want to reach a higher level, you can build your own house, but if you want to have a really nice house, you need to hire somebody that has a lot of experience with that.